Welcome back, everybody. This is Alex and Mahsa with IgG4-RD Life. Now, Mahsa, you mentioned a couple of important things regarding the research-led information that gets put out and how it impacts many of us patients in the process of diagnosis. And then, of course, the impact on treatment as well. So we struggle during our journey to diagnosis. So this one, it hits home for a lot of us.
Yes, thank you, Alex. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our third episode. The research-led information that gets put out, that's a huge thing for us, because even when we got diagnosed, right? Eventually, when we finally got the diagnosis, we hear this term IgG4. What's the first thing we're going to do? We're going to go put it into Google and try to find out what information is being put forward about our disease, right? And a lot of the information that you see it's very biased, right? So it's not based on a diverse group of patients. And it really affects us, because we'll read something that says average lifespan of 25 years. Now, if you really get into the details of that, you'll find out that the patients that they have been studying are older, middle-aged men for the majority of the studies, right? So if you're in your 60s and your average lifespan from point of diagnosis at age 60 is 25 years, well, that's like, okay, at 75. So it gets into kind of an older age, right? Versus when you're 22 years old, 32 years old, and you read something like that and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die in 20 years, So, just the type of information that's being put out. Now, when I said it's, targeting older age men or middle age to older men, this was something I noticed at the symposium. So they are still saying that it targets middle age to older men. This part of the information is really crucial that gets put out, because that leads to more of us females not getting the diagnosis that we need at the right time. And if we don't get the diagnosis at the right time, we will not just lose organs, we will not just have our lives completely torn apart in multiple different aspects, whether it's financially, emotionally, your relationships with people, with your own family. It's affecting everything. And then you don't get the diagnosis in the end, because they say, well, you're female and it's probably hormones or stress. Well, it doesn't affect younger people. And it's just not true. So it goes to show that there's not enough research being done on a bigger amount of population, I would say.
Yeah, that's really great to say. There's reasons for that, and
yeah, and I'll get into those.
Yeah, and we will also talk about that when we talk about demystifying research in future episodes, because correlative information does not necessarily mean causative relationships, and that's why they have to really exclude so much of the population, but it's very frustrating. So
it's very frustrating.
And what do you think we can do to help fuel these research and market studies, and to kind of skew it in a direction that might help us? And
well, first of all,
at the end of the tunnel,
we gotta scream. We have to scream at the top of our lungs that, hey, we women are here. We are living with this darn disease, and they're not listening. So one thing that I did when I was at the symposium, guess what? I started yelling that out, that, hey, there's actually a huge female population. And through the days, as the days went on, I actually came to understand why even females are not being picked for these studies or for these trials. It's because they're having so many little requirements and prereqs that pretty much exclude you from the trial or deny you from the trial. And that's usually if you have a secondary condition, or for the most part, even when you're seronegative. And these things make it hard. So if you have a secondary illness, they definitely don't want you. If you're on a specific medication for another illness, they definitely don't want you. If you're too far and out of region, then there's no trial in your region to even be studied, right? And these little things, these are actually huge things. So I spoke to a lot of these researchers from different areas, different regions of the world. I went one by one to their poster presentations because I was seeing diagnoses, I was seeing the different related diseases of IgG4 being studied that we always talk about in our support group, but nobody ever talks about it when it comes to us actually going to a doctor. When we bring it up, they just say, oh, no, this is not related to IgG4. Well, I just saw in that poster presentation at the symposium that yes, it is, right? Why are we not talking about all of these things? But they did say that it is hard when they come forward. There's friction between doctors, right? Always trying to agree on something. This is a story as old as time. But when even if they're not, arguing on the findings or trying to, come up with a combined collective strategy and protocol for us, it's that we are just falling through the cracks because we're female and the note out there is already that it affects males, and then they don't have access to these patients in their regions, which now through there I actually did collaborate with a lot of pharma reps and trial reps from the region so that me and Alex can finally start referring these patients from those regions to the trials in those regions. So that's one thing that we're going to do, which is going to really, really help advance and progress all this research that can finally change the narrative that's being put out for us. Another thing is that I'm showing up to these events and I am raising awareness on the fact that, hello, there's a lot of us who are seronegative. We're not going to have IgG4 plasma cells or plasmablasts showing up in our blood work. A lot of times it could be a storiform fibrosis pattern that is also IgG4, but it doesn't show IgG4. So there's a lot of different things. Now, how we're going to do this is actually there is a research platform that Alex and I have been working on, and we have launched it. Alex will explain to you a little bit on who we partnered with on that. And that is something that we're going to utilize where we're going to be inclusive, global. We need more diversity. So we're going to include all ages, all races, all ethnic backgrounds, both all genders, right? And we're going to unidentifiably work on this. And I'll let Alex kind of discuss it a little bit before I get into it. I'm excited.
Yeah, it is very exciting. What you're talking about here is bridging the health equity gap. And that has been an issue since we ever found out that there's more people than just middle-aged white men. But anyway, nothing against middle-aged white men because we're all human. But there's more of us as human than just that. And so, yes, bridging the health equity gap is super huge. And that's one of the things that the trend community is working on, and something that we also are working on with IgG4-RD Life. So I'm proud to say that we've been working with Trend on this data health analytics group. With Trend, a data health analytic group, and they live by the rule of research for good. And this is IRB approved research. So those of you who know what IRB means, great, because those of you who know what it is are going to ask, is it IRB approved? Those of you who don't, it's the Institutional Review Board. These are basically what colloquially some people might call ethics committees for people who aren't in the research community. The trend communities, because they're starting with just a few select rare diseases, and hopefully they will, as the proof of concept increases and as they show the kind of benefits that they can show for bridging the health equity gap with so many of us, like first of all, us, IgG4-RD, then they might expand to other rare diseases. So there's hope for all of you, not just us, me and
Right.
So
and Trent has actually been working with the gout, disease community. They've been doing Sjogren's as well. They started working because their parents, Maria and Chris, and they have a child with a rare disease, right? She has PWS, and they found that through social listening and through talking and discussions with other patients and caregivers of those patients, then they were able to actually pull out information and data that these doctors needed, the same data that Alex just brought up that these
Yes.
doctors look for.
And they live by an ethos of research for good. And these are wonderful parents with a child who have a rare disease. We are going to be researching them. I'm sorry, interviewing them. Sorry,
We've all researched them too. We
we
already
have
did
researched them, but you can research them too. Trend.
that.
And but we'll be interviewing them in an upcoming episode.
Yes.
So let's talk about the work we're doing with them, because they're the brains, the power, and most importantly, the love. Because at the end of every episode, I'm all like, we love you. I'm all about the love. And
Yeah,
that's behind the Connect platform. And
that's right.
can you explain to our listeners how Connect works and how this platform will bridge the health equity gaps that within our community and within research and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we already talked about Trend. Once we have them on, they will really, be able to answer any questions that anybody else has. But what they have done and what they have created and helped us with is creating this platform where it's not just a community, but it does get used for research for good. And how that happens is by having an AI listen to the social discussions. It's social listening to patient discussions on a platform, basically. And this AI that is built into the system, it is unidentifiable, right? So no privacy will be breached, right? There's no violation of any type of privacy. How it would work is, let's say for me, I am a 34-year-old female, right? So it would say 34-year-old female, Muculix, multi-organ involvement, treatments, steroids, Rituxan, DMARD meds, does that, right? So it would be that kind of a case study. It wouldn't say who you are exactly. None of your identity will ever be exposed. So that, rest assured, is safe. Being approved by the IRB as well goes on to make sure that we are obviously ethically and morally right. Now, me and Alex, we are both ambassadors on that platform. It is called IgG4-RD Connect. And what me and Alex do is we moderate and we facilitate different discussions and topics, which will get us talking about these shared symptoms, traits, or even if it's not shared, right? Then that person would be falling into that unique case, right? And we would be able to, really pull insights from this and create this research data and publication that these doctors of us are needing, right? So for me, in order to find my increments of how I should be receiving Rituxan, because even that varies patient to patient, whether they're seronegative, whether they have only one organ involvement, whether that organ got damaged and it led to lymphoma or something else, right?
Or how early they were diagnosed.
Right, right. Or how early they were diagnosed, which that's the whole point. And I know that we are really working hard on adding some proper things for our patients where we can even offer something like genetic testing. And if anyone's obviously ever interested in it, because for me, this was a family thing. I got it through genetics. This disease is in my paternal side, right? And we don't really talk about even the genetics part of it that much, which, but I think we should, because especially at the symposium, they did discuss that certain regions are more prone to having IgG4 related diseases. And then also some regions do affect patients' medications. So for example, Turkey was saying that, MMF, mycophenolate, right? They're saying that there's patients don't tolerate that, and they're starting to think that it might be a regional thing. So all these little things actually need to be tracked and researched. And through our Connect platform, we're actually able to discuss as patients and then as our caregivers. By the way, we like to add caregivers because we do have child patients, or we have patients who are disabled to the point where they need assistance to that point. So we take that seriously and into consideration. So what we would get everyone talking, we'll start pulling these traits, and then we give this information back to our doctors, back to all the medical institutions globally, right? And next time somebody's in there, they go into their system, they're like, patient has this and this, at least they will have an idea that IgG4-RD exists. It does affect women, it does affect children, it could potentially have secondary and tertiary illnesses, right? And it's just, it could affect everybody, all organs. We need more data on all of this. And that's what we are working on, this Connect platform, on providing all of our doctors and healthcare fields with. And we want our patients to feel like they have the confidence and the knowledge to go forward, even asking for help or asking for certain treatments or asking for certain procedures. And how we're going to do that is through our platform.
And that's super huge, I think, because one thing which we'll talk about in another episode, of course, I think I brought this up, is power differentials. And I don't mean this in any kind of like negative way, but it's like when someone who has so much power, you respect them, they have so much knowledge, you're like going through something, you kind of just hand it all over to them, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's really great to have a caregiver or a friend or somebody to go with you to the doctors. I don't think people should go to the doctors by themselves, all helpless, and then just absorb what the almighty doctor has to say, because we are all human, for one, and for two, we can be prevented from asking intelligent questions, even though like you leave the doctor, it's like, why didn't I ask this or that or the other thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So being prepared, so this can help people be armed with the same data, and be able to advocate for themselves if they don't have a caregiver or someone to go with them. Not Masa and I don't have people to go to the doctor with, so
Yeah.
we had to sort of step up with this. Because like I just remember just going to the doctors, deer in the headlights, and whatever my doctor said. Luckily, I had great doctors. Then I had one not so great doctor, and I was like, oh, okay, now I understand why I have to be in control. And I'm not saying, become a Google doctor, because you will never have the kind of information that years of studying is going to give you. But what it will give you is the ability to communicate intelligently with your doctor without having this power differential get in the way. You'll be using the same language. You'll be able to, anyway, that's what we hope to arm the patients with. Um,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
we are not, we patients kind of abdicate our role as being members of our own wellness team, and we should rectify that.
Absolutely. And me and Alex, we do say this often, that yes, we advocate for ourselves. We are our own caregivers, because we, at the moment, I mean, it's not that, hey, we could, right? We got to a point where we had to survive, and then it became that we could. But we understand the difficulties that really goes into even an advocate really understanding what IgG4 related disease is and what it can do to you, when even your doctors don't even know what it can do to you. So, and that one part is something that Alex and I are focusing on for the near future, actually, where we're hoping to be able to train advocates ourselves, where we can actually teach them on how to be proper caregivers for our community, our patient community, so that way they would know, if they have to schedule a doctor appointment for you, what words they have to say, what codes they would have to give, and just how to literally get you the help that you need at the time that you need, you know. Uh, and so, yeah, we will be working through all that. We understand, we're seeing the flaws.
Yeah, and what to track. Before I was saying I was like a crazy obsessed, personal data tracker. I'm not so crazy obsessed anymore. I'm obsessed with other things like my cats, but still, I track my cats. I track my cat's health, because of a several $1,000 vet bill. But still, the point remains: there are times when, what is going on? There. It would be better to just hand it over and just relax into your own
Yeah.
illness and let someone else take care of you. But that's really not the case. The other thing I wanted to bring up, it was something that you brought up, and I'm wondering if you noticed anything while you were in Milan, and that is you were
Hmm.
talking about different countries where, there was a lot of localized information coming about. And one of the things that we do know with the United States versus some other countries is the nature of the diaspora populations that come into the country. So,
Right.
for example, you've got like 50 plus nations in Africa. A number of them have come here willingly, a number have not, or their ancestors have come here unwillingly. There's a huge African diaspora in the US from multiple countries. And then we have the diaspora in the Middle East going to different countries based on,
Yeah.
what's going on there. But we know we have a huge population because of the whole thing about how the US was populated the way the current population is in the US is that a lot of people have come here running away
Yeah.
from something else or moving from something.
Melting pot, right? They like to say the melting pot.
Yeah, so it's really hard to track genetics, here, but it's much easier to track genetics elsewhere. Was there anything that you heard or saw in that regard?
So it shouldn't be that hard for us to track genetics, right? So I do feel that there's two things playing in, from everything that I learned, there's two parts even to the genetic factor, because genetics, I'm talking ethnicity, and then I'm also talking about after genetics geographically, so the region that you are in, right? For example, we do know that in the US, there's a significantly higher percentage of cancers and autoimmune diseases, and we have clearly, after all this research and all these whistleblowing, linked it to the foods that we are intaking, to our food, to our water, and how much it has heavy metals and toxics and all these microplastics in our food. They are making things worse. So we do need to provide genetic testing to find the ethnicity aspects of a person and see how much that's playing into it, because something that they were kind of picking up on, one person I spoke with, they were saying that Ashkenazi Jews have, a higher percentage that are coming forward with IgG4-RD. And that's why they were like, we think we need to look into that. And how do we do that? By genetic testing. And then also by geographical location would be environmental factors that are affecting us, right? So that's what the two sides that need to be talked about. And that's why I really love our Connect platform, is because we can actually come in and say what our ethnicity is, where we're living, what our region is. And that's all it needs to take into account to really make these correlations for us that are really hard for us to make, especially when we're scattered around the world.
Yeah. And the Go
But
West Young Man thing that was going on with the US, as people were coming in from the East, everyone was encouraged to go West. And my family escaped World War II on one side and escaped basically the whole Cold War, all of that, right? So anything past my grandparents, I can't tell my doctors what my family history is.
see, and that's where genetic traits would come into play and help. I didn't know my family history up until when I was diagnosed, and I have a close relation with my family. They just don't make it a habit of telling us their autoimmunes, their diseases, their cancers. I had to go back and link everything myself. I did so much work to save my life, and I have to continuously do it. But there's no way I'm going to be able to do it if I don't help everybody else along the way. And that's how me and Alex connected, because we both have that same drive, same passion, same soul, and we need to make changes. We need to create progress in all of these illnesses and diseases that are coming forward. We have the technology today to be utilizing to really, really get this information out there at a timely manner, because do you know that Muculex, my disease, has been around since the late 1800s? Right. And then for them to come out and say, hey, 20 years ago, we discovered Muculex. It's like, well, you mean you rediscovered Muculex, because this thing has been around forever. Sjogren's was around even before Muculex. So these things, we need our doctors also to start getting a little bit more creative, and we need them to really think of new possibilities and new ways, and that, hey, not everything is black and white anymore. I mean, 200 years ago, they didn't have the type of pollution and environmental factors and geographical factors and this and that affecting our body systems. So listening to a 200-year-old text, while knowledgeable, We should take that and grow from it and build on it, but we shouldn't stick to only that, because we're never going to make progress if we just stick to old black and white text.
Okay, so that I think is going to be an interesting conversation for another day, because
Yes.
I have a lot to say about science as a, way of thinking, a way of viewing the world. And
That's
you've
what we're here for.
you've heard me talk about it, but I'll talk about it like when we're talking about research and all of that, because there's relying on the old text, and there's the building new knowledge, and it's all about standing on the shoulders of giants, as the famous quote goes. I can't wait to talk about this in another topic. I know we're kind of running out of time here, but it just is so engaging and fun to speak with you, and I get carried away. Is there anything else that you wanted to bring up?
Yeah. One more thing.
Session. Yeah. Okay, great.
Alex and I we are, as you know, we're fresh. We're building this from the ground up. We're finding the gaps and we're trying to fill in the gaps. And we want you to, if you are interested, if you are a patient, please join us on our Connect platform. If you are a caregiver, you're an ally, please also join our platform. If you don't want to join our platform, just subscribe. Pay attention, because across your life, you're gonna cross paths with people who will voice their well-being to you. And then one person might say, I'm going through this, and you'll say, oh my gosh, you know what? I saw this podcast, and that maybe it's IgG4. Lead them to us. We can help. We're just here to help. We need to raise awareness. We're going to shine the light on everything IgG4 and more, right? We will expand more. So follow us, like us, but also keep checking our website, because we are building our website. You'll see we have a contact us page, but we are going to add one for our Connect platform as well, where you can just directly join us there. And with that being said, thank you guys so much. We appreciate you, and we will see you next time.